so much.
I've talked about wanting to see more computational photography tools in cameras. And with the rise in AI technologies, it feels like we as creatives are gonna get some crazy tools. And I just had a super interesting experience testing out something new. This feels like a positive step in merging both hardware and software to get even more out of a camera. I don't know if we can call this the ChatGPT or Dolly or Midjourney camera yet, but we're getting closer. No, it's not a GoPro. No, OpenAI didn't get into cameras. This is the Insta360 Ace Pro. And I think this might be a big step forwards in AI computational photography in a camera that's not a smartphone. To me, there's three big, interesting AI things happening in this camera and a whole bunch of other smaller things that I probably won't get to because limited time. This is sponsored by Insta360, so this is not a review. I'm just gonna run you through the specs, and as always, you form your own opinions. First off, the build is really nice. It feels really high quality, and I love this really big flip LCD screen that we get. You can use it on the back. It kind of locks in there, and then you can press these buttons on the side to lift it up. And then we have this nice flip LCD screen. They partnered up with Leica for the lens, and it's sporting a 1/1.3 inch sensor that can shoot 4K up to 120 frames per second. I also like that they gave us options for action, so that's like super wide. Then we have ultra, which isn't quite as wide. And then we have dewarp, which with just a tiny bit of a crop, you get rid of that whole action camera, warpy, wide angle lens look. Again, straight in camera, really like that. And then of course we have horizon lock, where if you're tilting it slightly, you don't see that. It actually keeps the horizon level. We have a really nice magnetic mount on the bottom that you can use all sorts of accessories. It's really easy to use, and it's very rugged and strong. It even has a little lock just to make it extra safe for you. The Ace Pro can be fast charged up to 80% in just 22 minutes and fully charged in 46 minutes. And it's sporting an all new 5nm AI chip. Which brings us to my three favorite AI things inside the Ace Pro. Two of which are more on the computational photography side, and one is just full on AI. You got a glimpse of that. Number one is their pure video mode. So this is a completely separate recording mode that's specifically for low light. And I don't think I've ever seen this kind of low light performance from a camera this size. Now, when you're recording it, it doesn't look very good on the screen. It's very noisy and all that stuff. But then once you record it and stop it and you look at the footage, it looks really great. And so I think what they're doing is they're essentially boosting the ISO quite a bit, but then they're using that AI chip to really clean it up and make it look really nice. Of course, you lose a little bit of detail, but it looks pretty dang good. And comparing it to, let's say, a GoPro, this is one of those areas where the Ace Pro is just so much better. And because of the way they're doing this, that means that the low light stabilization is also much better. Typically in low light, the stabilization on these types of cameras gets really crappy. You can kind of see the jitters and the motion blur, but here it's looking way better than I've ever seen. And the best thing is that it's in camera. You record it, stop the record, it's done. You can use that footage, edit with it right away. You don't have to run it through any software or any post-processing. It's all done in camera. Number two is the HDR. I've been wondering how long it would take for camera companies to start putting kind of like that iPhone style of HDR on video, where it doesn't look like HDR video. It just looks like you have really nice dynamic range. It's probably my favorite computational photography, using software to make your image look better. thing out there. I just love that you can use a tiny sensor, make it look so much higher quality than it's supposed to because there's a lot of dynamic range all of a sudden. And for action cameras, I feel like this is one of those things that you just need. And we've kind of had this before, I think, on some cameras, but it's never really been that good. You get artifacts, ghosting, all sorts of weird stuff. This just works really well. And again, it's in camera, it's happening as you're recording it. I believe it's up to 30 frames per second. And for me, I'm usually using 24 frames per second, but it can capture these really tricky situations where there's a lot of like contrast between the dark areas and the bright areas. And it can make it look like this camera has way more dynamic range than it should. Do I want this on every camera, including my Sony cameras, as an option for extra dynamic range? Yes, I do. And the last one, which is full on part of this AI revolution, we get Dolly Midjourney for video. Now, this part isn't built into the camera itself, but their app has all sorts of cool features that you can use to do very creative things. And how this works is you can record on the Ace Pro and then take it in the app, and then you can choose a theme or even prompt it yourself, and you get these crazy AI graphics that just, like, it's kind of mind-boggling how easy this is. And I personally, literally, no matter how hard I tried, I could have never done this like even a year ago. And now I have these completely new tools in my hands. So you can choose one of their preset themes. So for the footage that you saw in the beginning, I was using the sci-fi theme. But you can also give it a prompt, just like in ChatGPT, Dolly, and Midjourney, these programs that we're getting used to. You can give it a prompt to tell it what you want. And you can even choose certain areas of your image to be affected by this AI graphics thing and not the whole thing, which again is very interesting to me. The Ace Pro is just giving you options to be creative in a way that I haven't really seen before, and definitely not this seamlessly. Like, to be able to just record something quick and then just kind of give it a prompt. And it does take a few minutes. It's being processed in the cloud because AI stuff is very heavy to do still. So it does take a few minutes, and you can only do 4 seconds at a time. But I wasn't even trying to really make anything. I was just testing things. And already my brain was like, oh, this is interesting. I could do some pretty creative things with this. And if you actually planned it out, you could do some really creative storytelling just using these tools, using the Ace Pro and then the app. It's obviously not perfect, but it is much better than I expected it to be, if that makes any sense. Now, here's where you're probably thinking, just like I am, but there's no soul to it. And if we follow that logic, then there's no soul to this camera or my lens or the microphone that I'm using or the editing program that I edit my videos on. But if I use these tools, I can definitely make someone feel emotions, make them cry, tell a story, and make something that does have soul. And so this whole argument of like, but there's no soul to it, I think is silly. Of course, there's no soul in my lights or my... But what you do with these tools is what matters. And that's where you as the creative, you as the filmmaker, can make something that does have soul. And these are just new tools that you get to use to make something that you, definitely not me, would have ever been able to do before. To me, AI just hasn't been used that well yet because we're still getting used to all these tools. We're like, well, that's cool, but how do I use it? And I think very soon we're gonna get to that point, and the next generation of filmmakers, you're just gonna be used to all these AI tools, and you're gonna use them to tell your stories, to build something with soul in a way that we've never seen before. Just like digital cameras change filmmaking, these AI tools will 100% change filmmaking and storytelling forever. Not that you have to use the crazy AI stuff all the time. Sometimes it's just nice to have really good low light stuff or HDR video to give you tons of dynamic range. But then sometimes it's also really cool to do something that's like totally outside of the box and what we're used to. AI tools will change filmmaking forever, and the Ace Pro is just proof of that.